Hey guys, what's going on? Chris here as always with Shughead Gaming, bringing you my review for Titanic VR, developed by Immersive VR Education Limited, and while this is currently available on various PC VR platforms, this review will of course be on the PSVR version, and reviewed on a PS4 Pro. Titanic VR releases November 22nd for an estimated price of $20. Of course, that depends on your region. Witness the sinking of the RMS Titanic, then explore the shipwreck. Titanic VR is a diving simulator and immersive interactive story that will leave you with a greater understanding of the historic tragedy that unfolded in 1912 by putting you into the history of the Titanic. As always guys, if you like this video, please hit that like button, and if you'd like to see more PSVR content from me, please consider subscribing, and for updates, hit that bell icon. Of course, if you want more PSVR news and info, check out Shughead Gaming on Twitter and Facebook. As always, graphics are up first. Similar to Immersive VR's previous title, Apollo 11, the visuals here aim to be realistic, authentic, and immersive. In both titles, the limited budget and the size of the developer does show its limitations, but for the most part, manages to deliver a clean and believable experience. One advantage Titanic VR has over the previous title is that the majority takes place in the light-deprived, murky depths of the ocean. This, when combined with the aged, decomposed, and sediment-covered remains of the Titanic, allow the developers some easy tricks to pull off the visuals here. Draw distance is never an issue due to the limited reach of your submersible's lights, and the blurry visuals with their lack of detail up close don't necessarily hurt the visual package like they would had they been in a different setting. Visual drawbacks aside, when exploring the regions of the Titanic wreck, the visual presentation is at times eerily similar to actual submersible footage collected by explorers and scientists. Using comprehensive maps and 3D models, the resulting exploration at times truly delivers the desired effect of making you feel like you are in fact actually exploring the remains of this famous cruise ship. When in the submarine or ship's lab, graphics show their blurry textures a bit more and come off surprisingly less detailed and sharp than what we saw inside Apollo 11. That being said, with the exception of some difficult to read text, the overall package isn't horrible to look at and still remains very enjoyable to be inside. One true blemish on the PSVR version is when viewing the 15-minute long recreation of the sinking of the Titanic, told from the point of view of the passengers of Lifeboat 6. As stated by the developers in their Kickstarter blog, they couldn't get this portion to run properly on even the PS4 Pro due to the large amount of things happening on screen. The result is that the developers had to pull out the 3D depth and instead go with just a 360 video presentation. This isn't as horrible as I feared it would be, but it is overly dark and definitely lacks the immersiveness and impact a true VR presentation would have had. In addition, while characters here texture-wise look fantastic, they are let down somewhat by clunky animations. Regardless, this truncated retelling of the final moments leading up to and during the sinking still left me with an emotional impact of what it must have been like that I truly wasn't really expecting. Sound is up next.
There's nothing. No water, no bread, no compass.
Any blankets? I don't see any.
Titanic's coordinates sent out in distress on the night of the accident had been incorrect. On 1st of September 1985, a Canadian-French team were searching the area.
When in the submersible, Titanic is definitely at its best. The hum of the sub combined with the whir of electric motors gives a very authentic feeling to the whole experience. Now, while I have never been in a submarine myself, and certainly not at these depths, I still felt that the overall audio portrayal seems a bit lacking in its nuanced sounds that would really drive home the fact that I was underwater at extreme depths. Maybe it was the lack of creaks and groans that I expected, or the almost complete lack of water movement in either sub-momentum or bubbles. Outside of this, the radio instructions and random chatter all sounded genuine, and the documentary commentary over the guided tours sounded professional and very well done. I did run into a few audio level hiccups during the extended tour mode, but this was minor and it did not ruin the experience. Audio during the 360 video that recreates the sinking of the Titanic fares significantly worse and definitely shows the game's budget constraints, for at times the PS4 Pro even seems to struggle with the simpler 360 presentation. Music at times seems to almost stutter, while overall sound quality of the music also seemed to suffer. Additionally, we hear missing sound effects and voices, with 3D audio being very hit or miss throughout, and really lacking the production values I had hoped to hear. Voice acting, while never atrocious, is definitely not fantastic at times, and just like the 3D audio, it tends to be all over the place in the quality of the various performances. All in all, an uneven audio package that ranges from decent to pretty meh. and never manages to reach some of the fantastic audio moments that were delivered in the Apollo 11 experience. Next up is gameplay. Titanic VR is comprised of 3 parts. The first, and the showpiece portion of the game, is that of the story-driven campaign. It is here that the developer has wisely attempted to take the inherent dry nature of the factual documentary format and fused it with a simple narrative to tie together all the various tasks that are assigned to you. Here you will control the primary submersible and also that of the much smaller and more nimble ROV, as you explore not only the outside of the wreck but also the interiors of this famous ship. In addition, you will be tasked with using the sub's mechanical arms to pick up artifacts, then actually clean and restore these objects in the lab. Here you are given a sincere appreciation of not only the exploration side of things, but also what goes into the preservation of such finds. Finally, in an effort to steer Titanic VR more into the game territory, players will find themselves tasked with more trivial objectives such as chasing rare fish. Unfortunately, a fairly serious bug from the earlier PC build seems to have found its way into the PSVR version. When early in the campaign, you are first placed in the ROV and asked to bring up the inventory menu. Regardless of what I tried, including a full reinstall, I could not bring up the menu, and as a result, the 3-hour campaign for me lasted 15 minutes. This could just be a pro thing or an issue with certain console settings, but as this was a commonly mentioned issue with early PC versions, I would expect a patch fairly quickly, but until then, buyer beware. Fortunately for my review purposes, the game has a second part that allows for free exploration of the Titanic wreck at your leisure. Here you can control both the primary submersible and the smaller ROV without assistance. Controls of the submersibles can be controlled with either 2 move controllers or a DS4, with the added benefit of the moves being you can actually grab the controls yourself, greatly adding to the whole experience. Controls of the sub are deep enough to give you the sense of actually being in control, yet never leaning too hard into the sim side of things and frustrating. For those who prefer a more hands-off experience, Titanic VR also offers a third part, which offers a few different tour options. The first being the previously mentioned reenacted sinking of the Titanic. As I mentioned, due to performance issues, this portion is only a 360 video and not true VR. This fully in-game animated section has some quality issues, but ultimately it still ends up being a pretty potent piece of gameplay regardless of its shortcomings. The final tour option fortunately comes off much better and has the player back in the submersible. Here the game takes the controls and offers a fully narrated tour of the wreckage. The narration here is well done and very informative, with this being a perfect fit for Titanic enthusiasts and non-gamers alike. This tour version comes in 2 flavors, a short and a long version, with the long version clocking in at almost 45 minutes. For those only casually interested in the subject matter, this will be a one-and-done gameplay experience, so don't expect much replay value here outside of putting family and friends inside the headset. For those who suffer from weak VR legs, be warned there are some comfort settings on the control side of things, but when in tour mode, the submersible movement can be a bit to handle, so know that going in and also consider limiting your own head movement. And finally, that brings us to fun factor and my final review. Okay, well, I wouldn't describe Titanic VR as fun. It is interesting, engaging, and sometimes epic, but I wouldn't say fun. While much more of an experience and less of a game, Titanic VR follows a similar mold to that of Apollo 11, offering an almost interactive documentary to entertain and educate. Unfortunately, Titanic VR has some quality control issues and budget constraints that hold it back from realizing its full potential. I rate games on a scale of buy, wait for a sale, or burn it to the ground. At $20 US, I wouldn't say this is a wait for a sale, as I think it's priced appropriately for what's here. That being said, I would suggest simply waiting on this, as it needs a few patches to fix some things that shouldn't have made it here to launch. If the subject matter doesn't interest you, then maybe pass on this, or at least wait for a decent sale, as this likely won't do anything to take you away from Beat Saber or Firewall. That's it for me, guys. If you like this video, please hit that like button. And if you'd like to see more PSVR content from me, please consider subscribing. And for video updates, hit that bell icon. Of course, if you want to see more PSVR news and info, check Shughead Gaming out on Twitter and Facebook. I will catch you guys on my next video.